Welcome to the Time Has Come podcast. My name is Graham Wardle, and this is my very first video podcast episode. So thank you for joining me here today. I'm excited to share this with you all. It took a lot of work and lots of learning, but I'm here, it's happening, so thank you for joining me. If it's just audio you're listening to, that's okay. The episode's gonna be great for you too. If you wanna check out the video version, you can do so on odyssey.com or on YouTube, and the links are in the show notes, so if you wanna check that out, you can as well. I got my good friend Kerry James. He's back on the show. I'm so excited to share this with you all. The conversation, as always, is so interesting with Kerry, and I'm happy that this episode is coming to you in video format. We're shooting it in Kerry James's camper van that he's rebuilding, and it was really fun to shoot it. I'm so excited to share all the different topics that we covered because Kerry and I have a lot of different conversations, and this episode is really reflective of what our typical conversations are like. We bounce all over the place, we get into things, we challenge each other. It's a lot of fun. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And let's get into it. Kerry James, the time has come to welcome him to the podcast. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Time Has Come podcast. I'm sitting back with Kerry James. It's been over a year now. I think about a year and a half since you've been on the show. So thank you for coming back. How you feeling today? How you doing today?
I'm doing really well, man. Thank you for having me back on the show. I know we've talked about doing this for quite a while now, and it's about time we finally just made time for this.
And we're doing it in your van. This is the van that you're
in the motorhome.
Yeah, the motorhome. That's right. So tell me about the motorhome. What's the name of it?
Okay, this is a little humiliating, but it is presently the Slumber Queen. I have no specific ideas what I could change it to yet, though. Any suggestions?
I like Slumber Queen. I think you should keep the Slumber Queen.
You know, there's just a certain amount of pride I just don't have to just pull up and it's like, what is that guy up to? Oh, he's rocking the Slumber Queen. So he's probably here for some glamping.
Yeah. It's a great ride though. And this is in the 80s?
It's an 89.
89. Yeah. And it's a lot of work, but you're doing it all yourself, which I'm so inspired by. I wanted to do something like this, but I was like, I don't have a year and a half. I want to get on the road. I want to start just traveling and such, but you're doing this all by hand, all by yourself. So how long have you been working on this so far?
Well, the dream started, there was another van. This started, and of course, my dad and I were going to repair that together, and it was going to be this kind of team project. And then he got sick, and so that kind of dream kind of went away, and I was still going to repair and restore the van, but I was like, you know what? I need something that is more of a home. And I started to realize, I was like, my desire to wander and to explore and to figure myself out through wandering and exploring and just being, I think the coolest thing about this lifestyle, living on the road like this and just wandering about, is that often the only real reason to move is just an impulse or a drive to try something new.
You're inspired.
Or an opportunity is opening somewhere. And when you don't have a fixed home, following opportunity is really fun and easy.
Yeah.
And, if you are in a place in your life where you're a little lost and you don't know what next, then why not stay on the road so that if the idea of home does call you somewhere, you can just make that your home.
Just go.
So,
yeah, dude, I love that. And that's what I've enjoyed about riding in I call it my podcast van or my battle bus, is just being able to travel, visit friends, and go where I feel inspired and go where there's an opportunity. And that's really outside comfort zone, right? Because you realize in that sense, all those things you thought you needed, all those sort of certainties that you thought you needed, you're like, actually, I don't need all these things that I think that I did need before. And it kind of simplifies your life in a way, and you kind of can stay more in tune with things and in the flow.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And
it's cool.
I noticed there were a lot of things about the way I was living before I decided to, and it took a lot of things going kind of, wrong in order to motivate me. When COVID hit and we were all quarantined, and then the company I was working for kind of just fell apart. And so I was left kind of unemployed. The show didn't go until much later. And it was this huge shock of awareness. And I really started to reflect on the things that I either don't enjoy about society in terms of what is being asked of a general Vancouverite to live in a city and to survive in a city. And it wasn't, so I'm not blaming the city. I was in a sense, I failed to succeed there. I failed to find my joy there.
Yeah.
And I tried for a long time, and I tried to be creative and try a lot of different things, but I had to accept that that situation just wasn't working for me, so much so that it was manifesting as a really neurodiverse and neuroatypical person. It was starting to manifest in some really negative ways, not necessarily spiraling into like negative behavior that is like, you know, outrageous or self-harming, but in terms of self-isolation and just getting lost down the existential rabbit hole while fighting to just survive. I was like, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, what can I do? And I was like, at that time I just had a minivan. I was like, well, let's explore this. I'm going to go wander while COVID is happening, go explore the woods and see what's out there. And then I just didn't come home for 2 months. So I was like, well, why am I hanging on to this place? And that's when I really started to ask the things about myself, like the ways that I seem to be unable to fit into society. And this isn't like a rip on society. I acknowledge that there are things about me and behaviors about me. Maybe I should just take this off. Hey?
Yeah, maybe if you can. Yeah, maybe that would be better.
But there's just behaviors that are fundamental to me that I can't like the way some people can cope with even like understanding how simple it is to go to the bank to finance a vehicle, for example, or finance a home. Those are things for someone who can be like really neurodiverse that is just hyper challenging on a lot of levels.
What does neurodiverse mean?
Well, I'm starting to be a lot more open. So a lot of people whose minds work differently, we recognize it as mental illness because that's a stage in their neurodiversity that we're seeing someone on a down wave where they're struggling. So we go, oh, they're mentally ill. And so I called myself mentally ill and crazy for a long time. And this is what I've been discovering while on the road. And this kind of wraps around to it is like, I'm clearly different. The way I perceive reality and experience it. And I've noticed this just because of the ways I don't fit into society. I'm unable to succeed at other tasks people find simple. So I started being like, okay, well, I'm mentally ill when I'm not well. But how can I adapt to understand my neurodiversity as a strength when it's on the upside of the wave, when it's on the upswing?
Okay.
And I'm learning more about that as I explore on the road through nature and being disconnected from like the 40-hour work week, the system. And, you know, like, and that dream also took a huge hit when my father got ill because suddenly I was responsible for someone else entirely.
Yeah.
And that lasted, you know, about 8 months. And so the beginning of getting back on the road is just starting for me again.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited for it because if anything, going back and taking care of my father, as rewarding as that was, you know, being trapped in the city again for that 8 months, like it really reflected at me that I'd made the right choice to be on the road. Yeah.
Nice, dude. Well, before we continue, let's get you to remove
Let's get this annoying loud coat off. Take my mic off.
Here, I'll get those.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
Do you want it? You wanted that like the back?
Yeah, then it's right on the back, right?
Yeah, cool.
Kind of
stylish.
Feels cool.
Now, if you bring this like this way.
How's that?
Yeah, that's
pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right there.
Minor technical
Nice.
difficulties.
Closer to the mic, the better. That sounds really good, and everybody loves that on that are listening and such. So being back in Vancouver has sort of like opened you up to this. You called it neurodivergent.
No, neurodiversity, just
diversity.
Different. Yeah.
Oh, diversity. Oh, I get it. Okay.
For a second, I thought you were dumb.
Well, sometimes I am.
It's the first he's hearing of this, ladies and gentlemen. No. I may have said it wrong.
I've never heard that term before. That's why I asked.
Well, it is kind of new age. It is people understanding that mental illness is the manifestation of the ways that you're not fitting in and things can really go wrong. And then you start to accept self a little bit. And that doesn't mean like you just clear the way. You just start to accept. You're like, wow, I have some very unique particular challenges. And I just got to be open to whatever that means for me.
Mm-hmm. Did they also come with strengths though, right? Like this is...
Well, I mean,
is it like a superpower where you have to like learn to wield it?
No, I mean, you know, that's a little too... This is going to sound strange to maybe a lot of people. Maybe people who are a lot more neurotypical. Because sometimes to manage like kinesthetic synesthesia, for example, which I know is not going to too much of an explanation, but in order to manage something, sometimes you actually have to be a little bit definitive and stern with yourself.
Okay.
So I don't need it to be a superpower. It doesn't have to even be special. I just need to be able to manage myself so that I can have a relatively joy-filled life. Because that's really what I've been learning in these last years is like life is really precious. It's stunningly short. There isn't really anything beyond joy. truly. And I mean, when you talk about that, you think about all the things that we have to do to survive, and they're hard. And it's like, I'm not saying I enjoy every moment. In a sense, it's like, this is comfortable, this is fun. Sometimes the things that you have to do to survive are really challenging or scary or hard or monotonous or painful, but it's still fuel because you either enjoy your life or you become a zombie and you just walk through the pattern.
Check out.
And I can't be checked out anymore.
Yeah.
Which also means I've dared to try and hone the ways that I survive to fit my lifestyle and sense of joy more. You know, no 40-hour work weeks for me.
Well, that's kind of what this whole pandemic thing has brought to.
Let me rephrase that. No 40-hour work weeks given away to somebody else.
For yourself.
I'll give 80, 90 hours a week to myself, my own creativity. Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm not giving 40 to anyone else.
Yeah. I think that's the theme of the transition that so many people are going through right now is like, hey, I'm not happy in this job. I'm not happy in this.
I remember when COVID first happened, I made a silly story on Instagram because it had occurred to me. I was like, man, the only reason that we ran out and got jobs and jumped into the system is because it was more exciting than being in high school. We thought it was success. Yeah. And I was like, but now that they've given us a summer vacation again, how the hell are they going to get us to go back to work? We figured out the con. We're like, no. I could get used to this whole 2 months a year off.
Yeah, man.
I think we should just add a 13th month out of time.
Okay, let's jump to that. But before, I just want to finish this thought on COVID because I think that it has given so many people an opportunity to rethink the way their lives work and like what is happiness, what is success, what am I really doing this for, right? And so we were talking about this. Was it this morning or last night or something? About actually being grateful for this really unfortunate circumstance and situation that we're in. That it's shown. So it's provided an opportunity for so many people, and I'm speaking for myself here, to just think outside the box. Be like, well, what do I really want to do? Like, what would be really fun? Like let's go shoot. Let's shoot a podcast in your van, and like let's set up some cameras and like let's have fun. Let's play. You know, like and that those opportunities. Sometimes when you get so stuck in that 9 to 5, that sort of predictability of life, that you kind of miss that and you lose that joy of life. And so the shaking up of everything, I think, has been a really great opportunity for people to just kind of rest back and be like, what's important in my life right now? Who are the people that I really want to spend time with and invest in? Do I want to invest in myself? So many people don't do that, right? So,
well, and I think too, starting to ask questions like, what is joy fundamentally? Because I know for me, when I first think of the word joy, I think I see myself having a good time. It's relaxed. It's carefree. Well, I mean, that's all good and well, and that's definitely part of it. But the joy that I think that you and I and a lot of people are waking up to is something I think much deeper. It's like I think it's like maybe I'm even confusing the word joy for freedom. And it's just the type of joy that I'm talking about only comes when you feel that sense of freedom. Oh. And that comes from a lot of inner work, because I think we were just talking about this the other night too, how comfort and discomfort are the same coin. They aren't actually different. Freedom is in that letting go and accepting, that having no preference. Waking up and being angry that the weather is not hospitable is not very useful way of navigating life. Yeah. But if you wake up and you're just like, oh, well, how can I use what this is to do something that I wouldn't have done if the weather was perfect?
Mm-hmm. I see that as the idea of surrender, where it's like, whatever is, it is. And so my spiritual work or my inner work is just to accept that, to surrender to what is. And then it's like a wave on the ocean. It's like, I can't argue with the wave if I'm trying to surf it. It's just like, I just have to accept it and do the best I can on it and have fun on it. Maybe it's not the best wave, but don't think about that. Just think about what is happening. So like surrender, but the idea of freedom too is freedom from expectations and that joy of being alive, to be present in this moment, to see what comes. Like, that is a beautiful feeling.
Well, and then being on this road, like you found, like just sort of becoming a minimalist, simplifying your life, daring to invest in your own creativity, your own work, and all that stuff. It still doesn't make those shadows that you had go away. It gives you room to
No.
see them, notice them, and go, hey, oh my God, I didn't notice this demon in me had a face. Oh, nice to meet you. How can we work on this?
Yeah.
But that's what I've noticed too, is you can't actually run from that stuff. You can try, and I've changed so many times through my life, you know, even from like feast to famine, and those same problems are still there. But I will admit, it's a lot easier to confront them and be open to them when you're living a more minimalist lifestyle.
Yeah, there's less distractions.
Much less distractions.
And that's what I found, is that my demons or my shadows or whatever you want to call them, those bad habits, insecurities, false belief systems, the being on the road in the past few months where I've had my podcast van, it's opened me up to like, oh, you thought you dealt with that?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
you didn't. And also, like, it's not like any lesson that you learn. If you learn the lesson, it doesn't mean that it will never present itself again for you to demonstrate what you've learned. It just means that you've learned the skill to do it. So it's like you'll still be presented with that opportunity to go fall back to that old way, that old habit, that old false belief system. And it's like you have to exercise that. Same with your body. It's like if you don't exercise, like you get really fit, you don't just stay fit.
No,
you know what I'm saying? It's the same with your shadows or your demons. It's like you don't just stay a master of those things. You have to continually practice at them, work at that self-love, of that believing in yourself, whatever the case may be, that helps you maintain that sort of health or that agility in that area of your life. And the simplicity or the living minimally, clearing out distractions, it allows for that process to happen much easier and much quicker, I've found, and I've enjoyed it. So it's been a good exercise in self-discovery and cleaning up things. And that's another thing about what's going on in the world right now. It's like it's providing people the opportunity to organize and clean up. And the people that aren't doing it, I'm seeing it getting worse for them. I'm seeing it, problems stacking. And it's like you can't ever run from your demons. You can't run from your shadow work. You can't stuff stuff in a closet.
Well, I'd argue
and then
that
it goes away.
That it's running from those demons that leads people. I think that everybody has the potential to do the work necessary to open themselves up to being empathetic. I think that everybody also has the potential to do the work to become near sociopathic or psychopathic and not love anybody or have empathy. I mean, those are two-way streets. The psyche is a pretty malleable tool. Certainly, I think we're definitely born with some inherent values unique to us as individuals, but I think a lot of it's learned
from our society. And and I think that's probably what we're going to be experiencing in the next few years as well, as a whole reimagining of society. And I've said that a few times on my podcast, of just saying to people, like, you have the power to reimagine how things are going to be. We're in this process of reimagining so much of our way of life. And I think that's really important, to whether you have kids or you don't have kids, or just even speaking, how you speak to yourself, like reimagine that. I'm catching myself all the time of like, if I don't do something the way I want in the language that I use towards myself, I'm like, stop that. I saw some quote somewhere where it was like, your subconscious doesn't know the difference if you're like just joking with yourself, or if you're just like, just beating yourself up, but you don't really mean it. It's like, it takes all that stuff in. And so I was like, yeah, I want to change that. I don't want to be beating myself up under my breath, I think that's important, and that's just my way. But, when I have kids in the future, it's like, yeah, how do you give them positive frameworks and belief systems and affirmations that can be something sustainable for them?
Well, and necessarily like actually allow them to integrate into society. So that's a scary one too. Is like, if you arm your child to be this incredibly open-hearted, loving, compassionate, rational, critical thinking creature, it might just get bull rushed.
Yeah. Well, I think boundaries and that to me was a big lesson, is like having healthy boundaries, because having an open heart, is super hard. People can attack it and just take advantage of you. But if you have good boundaries and you can enforce those, then I think you can have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, no, not cool. See you later, buddy. But if you don't have those, and you get walked all over, and then people close their hearts, and then life just kind of dries up. And where was that quote? Something about like, the true test of something about like opening your heart in the midst of this world and how challenging it can be is a real test of somebody because of the insanity and the cruelty that we see in our world. It's just much easier just to close off, but can you still stay open and survive in this world while it's being the way it is? That's a challenge, but it's one that I strive for because I don't want to ever lose my connection to my heart and feeling compassion and love and empathy for people just to survive. It's like, no, I got to have both. I have to be in the world and I have to be empathetic and be as best I can and be compassionate.
And thus we live in vans.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But I don't know. Hasn't that dream been a lot easier for you since you've been on the road? Or at least the focus?
Well, the focus of it for sure. Like I said, just the distractions are gone.
What would it take you to be compelled to move back into a house?
Well, I'm renting a house in December, so.
Yeah, but that's just for winter.
Yeah.
What would it take you to be like, I'm giving up the road?
Probably meet somebody. Like if she's like, okay, like we've traveled a bit in the van. And she's like, I want to move into a house, have a family, because I don't want to have a family in the van.
Yeah, that,
you know what I'm
makes
saying?
Sense. You can move to a boat, big boat,
like a houseboat.
Like a yacht with some critters running around.
A yacht
and a dog.
Maybe, hey. Back in the day, I don't know if we talked about this on your first podcast, about you wanting to buy a yacht.
Dude, the boat dream is not dead. I just got poor before I could manifest it. But I tried.
You still
really
want
hard.
to do it?
Oh God, man, yeah. If I could get on the sea, I'd be thrilled. And just like the motorhome, I don't know anything about the ocean. I don't know anything about boats.
Yeah, me neither.
But I'll
So
buy
much
one
to learn.
today and jump on it and start sailing away. Figure it out as I go along. YouTube.
There's
YouTube
totally. I think there's like laws and things that are different. There's like maritime law versus like land law and like international waters. That's what I'm curious to learn about, is like how if you're in different waters, different laws apply or something. I don't know. I'm still learning about that.
Laws are for city folk. I don't know. Just kind of do.
Nice. Well, Kerry, tell me something in the future that you have as a goal or as a dream or something that you would be cool. I know we talked about this earlier where you're like, I don't want to manifest things. I don't want to do that. I just want to live with life. But is there something that, a dream you have?
Do I have any?
Do you have a dream
left? This sounds so strange to say, but no, I don't really.
Do you have no dreams, no aspirations in that sense, or goals?
No, not really. No. Yeah. I feel. Yeah, I think maybe I'm just waiting for new inspiration in that sense, because not really. I've kind of just gone after everything that I've been curious about. And in one way or form or another, I've managed to manifest most of the things that I would have desired to try. And yeah, I don't know. Not really. Just open to opportunity. Stuff's hard to talk about.
Do you have desires? I always love these deep conversations with you because we can get into the nitty gritty, and I enjoy it. But if you don't want to talk about it,
no, we can definitely talk about it. I'm just trying to find a way to share about it. Beyond the ones that are very the obvious and animal ones, like comfort, connectivity, love, partnership, those kind of things. But even then, like at this point in my life, like so much of my time is spent thinking about the ethereal. And that doesn't you've seen me go through many different phases. I ping pong between extreme interest in science ability to describe the universe, and then I also bounce over to mythology's version of describing the universe, and then psychology's version of understanding of awareness and how that relates to the universe. And I guess recently I've been very much on a science kick in terms of understanding how this holographic reality is being created, where it's being created from, and learning new things about physics and chemistry, and how awareness works very much like a form of energy relating to all those things. Mm-hmm. And that in the last year, and maybe this is I don't know if things are good or bad, and I don't know where they're going, and I don't know what is compelling me, but I'm after the truth. And the truth is the closer you get true to any kind of real truth, the more the stories and the myths behind the legends start to disappear, and it boils down to math and science. And it's not that it's any less fascinating, but it pretty much eviscerates any sense of your personal ego. And now I'm not denying in any way that people's gods and deities and that aren't very real. They may very well manifest and interact with people's particular awareness. That's between them and them. But I do know that from my experience and what I've been learning, none of those forms of life or deities or manifestations have the answer.
For you, that's what it feels like for you. They don't have the answer.
Well, and that's the thing. Is like this is going to sound offensive, but it's like, no, they do not have the answer. I mean, like the answer about how this is happening and what it's for. Nothing really does. So the best we can do is not understand the story, but understand the sentence structure, which is what science does. So does that make sense?
Yeah,
to
it
you
makes
as a
sense.
metaphor?
I get it. I think it's kind of like what I'm hearing from you is it's almost like you don't have desires or goals or things because you're more interested in the mechanics of everything. And once you start studying the mechanics of existence,
You stop asking for things.
You stop asking for things. Okay.
You stop needing things because it's not that things become meaningless. You start to only gravitate towards the things that you feel have any real meaning, which is like nature, time, clouds, plants, the ocean. And it's funny because you get closer and closer to those simple things, which in a sense are on a much grander scale representing that song of the universe and those mechanics. So it ends up linking around. So my time gets spent up just being absorbed in the moment often. And sometimes I'm laughing my brains out. Often I'm sitting in just silence, letting it happen. Sometimes I'm bawling my eyes out. It's just ever changing.
And you're okay with that?
Man, I have said so many grandiose things over the years in terms of my understanding of like, and that's when I'm talking about my neurodiversity in terms of having the type of mind that allows me to either hallucinate, manifest, or create these scenarios in which I can have these discussions with these other deities or life forms or energies, whether that comes to me through sensations or a dream or literally talking to one. I'm comfortable with all of that just taking place in my own mind. I'm comfortable with that being, as you put it, my superpower, because even if it's all just relating to self, I'm learning a lot from myself. And I am cutting things out of the way, things that like, this is like a lot of open confessional kind of stuff, but like the way my mind works and the way that I've seen other people through history who have had similar minds, like they can often get very, very unwell and be really bad for other people, whether that manifests on a big scale, like accidentally creating a cult or shit. So I'm like, my footprint is going to be way better than that. I ain't going to walk up to anybody and tell them I know the answers to the universe. But what I will do is be able to describe to them the patterns in which that story is laid out, because we can't argue with the math and physics of this. And I know some people, when they hear me say math and physics, they're like picturing a textbook from grade 10 and they're like, how does quadratics relate to the universe? Which actually you'd be stunned. But a lot of this stuff is a little hard to explain. And so I would recommend an author named Carl Johan Coleman to anyone who's interested.
Is this the one you were telling me about earlier?
Yes.
Yeah.
His book, The Quantum Science of Psychedelics. I would recommend that to absolutely everybody if they're curious about how awareness relates to the universe in a scientific way.
I find that fascinating, and I think it's a healthy pursuit to try and understand things. Some people are like, no, just like, I don't want to look into things. I have my beliefs. I don't want to question them. I don't want to challenge them. I don't want to look into them. And I think you can still have the magic for me, because I enjoy having these conversations. I enjoy learning about consciousness. If it is all mathematics and that it can all be explained that way, I'm like, cool. I want to look into that. I want to see that. I'm not afraid of losing my beliefs or my understanding.
And on that note, because that is so beautiful, like, because that's the risk. You're right. On one level, your personal stories will evaporate slowly. But That's why I went into this, because I'm the kind of person that is fortunate and unfortunate enough to see physical manifestations, whether that's auras, light shows, other deities, strange things moving through the clouds. Um, if that is just all my mind, and if it's just the science of the universe, well, it's still beautiful. It's still exciting. It's still it's still my story for communicating through this. There's nothing wrong with that. My stories have at times deeply empowered me.
Mm-hmm.
They've also debilitated me, just like everyone. Our stories empower us and debilitate us, especially if they close us off to some truths that we're not open to hearing. But there's enough room for your own personal mythos and the mechanics of the universe.
So what do you say, because this is something I think about when, people talk about the math and everything being, it's not really real. It's just your brain having different chemicals, and it's just all this sort of thing that you interpret to be magic, but it's really just a bunch of math and science. But I go, well, how about the idea that sort of that double slit experiment where when they look at the slot and it makes one pattern on the back. Do you remember that? This experiment I'm talking about?
I do.
And when they don't look, it makes another pattern. So by the act of observing, you change matter.
Yes, that's exactly how the dimension of awareness or thought affects reality around us.
Right. So if we have the power to shape the reality around us through our conscious attention, why not create a narrative, a story, something that is empowering to feed that?
I think that's how people related to each other for a very long time. Now, even remember, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about came from the Mayan civilizations and other civilizations spontaneously at the same epoch around the world, the same time period. They talked about plumed serpents and the heart of the sky and all this stuff. They didn't have a personal mythos. For them, they didn't take that personally. They knew they were talking about science. They just didn't have the same measuring tools or instruments. I think that there is enormous wealth of story and healing and learning and knowledge and connectivity and I'm going to reference it like this, in connecting with your ancestors. I believe connecting with your ancestors is a very real thing, that the human spirit, it must be the dimension of awareness, that the field of energy that is around this earth, we're all just sharing it. So in some sense, it must encompass the awareness of every human being that ever lived. It has to be growing with us. Otherwise, evolution wouldn't.
When we did mushrooms once at your place years ago, and I looked in that mirror, I was on the floor, and I looked in the mirror and I saw through my right eye all these other faces. I don't know if you remember me telling you this, but
I do.
Yeah, you do? Okay. And I was like, I feel like those are all the faces of the different people that I've been, and it went on forever. And it was this feeling of being connected to my ancestors, or being connected to this lineage, and that each life, each journey that I went through, there was lessons to be learned. There was things that were passed on. There were there was an evolving of a story, of a spirit, of a soul. And this was the latest one.
It's really interesting it's really interesting you brought this up, because remember the other night I was talking to you about how being a failure is okay, but I wasn't really articulating what I meant well.
Yeah.
There was something in what you just said about the other lives, seeing that through your eye. So as a repercussion to having gone down this road of understanding the mechanics of the universe versus the personal stories, where I fit into God's plan, or what it means when these angels or demons talk to me. As a repercussion of just being more open in general and allowing my ego to evaporate, I keep having more and more experience of what I can only assume is either past life or happening life somewhere else. It's almost like the more open I am to accepting true self, the walls and barriers in my psyche between this present life and past ones have started to get thinner, or at least more transparent. So I'm becoming aware that there is a possibility, at least in my personal belief system. And once again, this isn't necessarily the mechanics of the universe I'm talking about now. This is my personal belief system. Be clear about that for everyone. I feel like there's a way to become responsible for how you're living in all your lives at once.
Damn.
A way of either changing things that were wrong or re-experiencing things that were right. I'm not quite sure. I haven't gone that far yet, but this keeps happening, especially just the more in dreams, and it just keep experiencing other little blips of other realities and other selves. And it just, I think it's because of getting rid of so much need for that personal narrative that it's just other stories are finally slipping
I see.
in.
It's like, yeah. It's like you've cleared out a lot of the stuff. You've created space.
I think so.
And then therefore past can sort of
when you have
filter in or something.
When you have an idea of who you are, you're building walls. It's not my responsibility to have an idea of who I am. Anyone who looks at me is allowed to ascribe an idea to me for themselves. But I don't really have a way I don't really describe myself beyond the actions I take. Like, oh, that guy, he dresses like a construction worker and he's always working on a motorhome. Well, it's not really who I am. I don't really have any walls up anymore to describe self. I just feel open. I don't need any label or motive or like particular role. Maybe that comes from all our time on sets and acting and playing different characters.
Different characters, stepping in and out.
I'm okay not knowing who I am. I don't think I need to know. I don't think it's important.
I think a lot of people are scared to get to that place where it's like, well, who am I?
Like, I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter who I am. It just only matters how I'm doing. Yeah.
Doesn't matter who I am. Just matters how I'm doing. But what about your values? Don't you have values or things that you uphold? Like you're somebody that...
Well, I call those moral civic duties.
But those are things you create, though. Those are things that you've chosen.
Totally. Yeah, like absolutely. And that's the other thing I like to remember that personally, because it keeps me balanced. Any act of gratitude or kindness you do for someone else, even if you dive in a river to save a kid, you still did it for yourself. You didn't do it for the kid. You did it for you.
Why do you think that?
You were the one that couldn't live with the kid drowning. As someone who's jumped into a lot of scenarios, the truth is it was either entirely impulse overrided the brain, or I just couldn't live with something bad happening to that person.
Oh, I see what you mean. But isn't that because you feel intrinsically connected to them?
Thought and feeling come from the same two places, the heart and mind. They're not different. Feeling that way is the same thing as a thought. You feel intrinsically connected. That's the same thing.
No, I think thought and feeling are very different.
I think they're the same thing. I think that...
Because I can think something, and it's totally different experience than when I feel something.
Well, you can think something inside of your id, inside a sphere that allows you to think and run scenarios. But actually initiating or taking a thought and instituting it into your own programming, that's another thing. Yeah,
no, I understand that. I'm saying that there is a difference from my experience between thinking and feeling, because feeling is like it's here and now, it's happening right now, whereas I can think things and think in the future, think in the past, and it's almost like I'm not present, you know?
Okay.
So to me, it's two different experiences.
Totally. Well, they're two different languages. So when we think of thought, we think of the language I'm speaking now, English, because I'm putting these words together, and we often think, a lot of people think in English in their own minds, which I think is really weird.
I know.
Yeah, I don't. It took me a lot of years to just like not have English thoughts running through my mind.
You know another language?
Dude, if this thing's an Imaginarium, you have a whole, okay. So
Wait, you think in different languages?
No, yes, but not in words. This is the slowest form of communication that you can do with yourself, is to talk in English. Why?
How do you do it then?
Landscapes, music, experience, just experience.
You think in experience.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's like you visualize things.
Kind of, but faster. I don't have to program it.
Okay, take me through this. How does this work?
Well, what I'm trying to say is like, so for a while there, when I really thought I was going crazy and trying to figure some of this shit out, I was having these dreams that lasted for what felt like perceptibly years. Now, it's still a dream. So most of dream happens through a montage of events, and you're out of control. You cannot rationally choose. It's just happening to you. And so I was this river man, and I had a wife and I had kids, and I started experiencing this existential crisis, and I started seeing all these little mistakes, all these little winks everywhere around me. And it went on for like months and months. And I confided it to my wife that like I was feeling suicidal, that I just didn't feel like I was in the right place. And my kids and my wife got really defensive. And for a week, they were like always there being like, don't do it. Like, you can't leave us. You can't do this. You can't do this. And I was like, man, no, something's wrong. And so I killed myself in my dream. I poisoned myself when I went to sleep. And I've died in dreams before, but I've never taken my own life, like
Yeah.
willfully. And I thought this was as real as this, man. Like, just, this was really crazy. And so I killed myself, and I felt something inside me go, oh, he did it. Oh, fuck. He did it. He did it. What do we do? What do we do? How are we gonna? And so, boom, suddenly there was a tunnel, a light, all this stuff. I could see the universe, quantum physics, everything, you know, everything that you could imagine.
This is all in your dream?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something in me woke up as I was experiencing this out of body thing, and I was flying, and I was like, I caught you. You didn't think I'd do it. And I realized I was talking to my own subconscious. I was like, you didn't have a rendering of the next event. You didn't know how to show me an afterlife experience. And because as I was flying through the universe, I was like, that is artwork from Alien. That is artwork from the movie Noah. That is artwork. So I started realizing, I was like, you're stealing as many symbols as you can from other experiences to try and build the idea of a death, because you didn't think that I'd kill myself in my dream. And then suddenly it all led to this space where it was like, this is really strange, hard to describe, because it wasn't black and it wasn't white. It was just infinite. And this shape came out of nowhere, and it was like this huge, like exactly what I had always feared it was, like this 16-foot tall, like fucking seraphim devil looking creature. And he comes walking up to me, and I'm calm, and he just puts his arms out and kind of shrugs. And then I was like, I'm doing this to you, aren't I? And he just nodded, and then his shape changed. He just suddenly was like a reflection of me, but transparent. And then I was like, is this space, like, what is this space? What are we doing here? I was like, this place inside of us that we imagine in this pineal, like, it's meant for more than just your daydreams or the dreams you have at night or visualizing a scenario. I was like, this is the place where we get to talk, where we can become friends, you and me as a same being, but separate parts of the mind. My id, I'm Kerry James, but you're something else. You are my subconscious. You're the autonomic nervous system. You're responsible for everything I visualize. So what is this space? And I was like, damn, I'm going to steal this from the show community. This is the Imaginarium. And it's designed for communicating, for hyper advanced self-learning bounced off of the subconscious. And so now I've been learning to trust my subconscious more, to understand what impulses are. And I call them thought gardens now. So I seed my thought gardens with ideas, but I never pick one. I never have to choose anymore. It filters through some other kind of psyche, and suddenly everything in life is just a lot easier. And then, so the one time, like I tested this once, and it sounds really silly, but it was like nighttime. It was really scary. It was still the summer, and I went walking into the woods until I felt like considerably lost. And I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's use this like a tool. I am lost. There's no way my subconscious is. You have to know. They say that the memory maps everything, that this is all mapped. And I was like, all right, lead us back. Like, what do you got? And this little orange orb was floating in the woods. And I just followed it. Led me right out of the woods. That wasn't an angel. It wasn't magic. My subconscious rendered. It rendered.
But how do you know it was rendering that and not an actual alien thing or like angel thing or something? How do you know for sure?
I don't, but I feel.
But that's what you feel.
The relationship that I'm forming inside of my psyche with that kind of activities, those kind of things, seem to be getting stronger and easier. And so it's more the manifestations, at least just prior to my dad getting sick, were really starting to balance out. I was finding harmony with it.
Let's share with everybody, because you've mentioned your dad.
Yeah, he had a journey
times.
through leukemia, which he beat, guys. He's cancer free.
Yeah.
He is.
He's out there right now. We can see him right. Well, I can see him from here.
Very lucky human beings that. Yeah, he beat it. My dad is cancer free. He beat leukemia. It was a hell of a 8-month journey, and we did it together. Of course, he did all the hard work, but I was there for it.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. I was really happy to be able to shoot those. How long ago did we shoot those videos, those cameo videos?
God, well, that was a month before I went to see my dad, so that was last April.
Last April?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun, and it was good, and everybody came together and was super supportive. And
oh man, the world helped so much.
Yeah, I thought that was really great. And now he's walking around. We just saw him in the backyard there,
and his hair's growing back and everything.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Kerry, you just shared so much interesting material I've never heard you talk about before. And I'm fascinated with this idea of not thinking in language, but thinking in, I don't even know what you would call that, like experiences or thinking. You called it your thought garden. You seed this, and there's this process of experience and exploration that you're going through right now, that it doesn't, it feels to me super authentic and super like you're exploring what it means to be alive. You're exploring what it means to have a conscious brain and to be conscious in this universe.
Well,
on
I'm
this
tired
earth.
of pretending that the animal that I'm inherited and living in isn't aware of itself. This thing has to be as alive as I think I am.
You think the body is aware, separate from you?
I think so. Now, it's a strange thought because you're sitting in your shell as the captain, as Kerry James or Graham Wardle, and you assume that you are the grandest sum total of self. No, man, that's just the face on the screen. That's just the camera you're looking through. Most of who we are is happening on a much deeper level. And I'm curious, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Maybe it's a total waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
People out there that seem very disinterested in this seem, in general, a great deal happier with things and the way things are. And they seem to kick ass at it. And I go over to their houses and hang out, and I'm like, damn, how do you do this? You got to figure it out. Like, whatever you're doing, I want some of this. But I have an inability to be part of it. So I was like, well, might as well figure out my own thing.
Ah, okay. So when you say inability to be a part of that, is because you don't feel you could do that, or you don't feel... Why do you feel you have that inability to be a part of those?
I think people that have minds like yours and like mine you don't get to choose to not keep going down the road. You don't get to just like not ask the questions. What are you going to lay in bed and be like, I'm literally going to count sheep to not think about existentialism? There is one sheep. There are two sheep. Like, no, man, that shit ain't going to happen. The existentialism, it'll find you, man. It'll come up and be like, oh, he's not paying attention. Seed in the brain. Yeah. And man, I'm not saying that this type of difference necessarily leads to a life that isn't harmonized. I just think that, we got to go outside the box to find that harmony. And I think through history, like society hasn't always been like this. At the stages even where there were settlers in that, yes, they were way more focused on survival. They didn't have the luxury of exploring these kind of things. Because I'll tell you right now, if it's about eating or sitting around thinking on a rock, I'm going to go find me some food.
Yeah. But we have the opportunity, given our life circumstance, to ask and have these kind of conversations.
Well, and I think it's also part of an epoch. I don't think there's any going back from this. I think that this is going to be... It's growing, continuing. And whatever this shit that I'm playing with, I feel very certain that, okay, that's what I meant by being a failure. There's a potential that the way my mind works, because there are so many ways in which I can imagine a reality and a society where people with my type of mind actually excel. However, that's not happening yet. So if you're at the front of the wave, well, in a sense, you succeeded for evolution, but you also failed.
How so did you fail?
Well, you're like a kamikaze pilot setting the way for the future. It was never going to not be shit sandwiches here, because if you can't fit in and you can't figure out how to do this, I don't even know what they are. I'm like, I don't even know how to be part quite of society.
Yeah. Well, I think, on a large part, I don't think society is healthy. So I wouldn't want to be a part of it anyway.
And that's why I celebrate being a failure at it.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Okay, so in that sense, I completely agree with you. It's like, I don't want to be a success
I'm a proud
in a
failure.
system that's insane.
Yeah.
Why would I want to be successful in an insane system?
I completely agree.
You know? Yeah, so to be so being proud of a failure in that sense, 100%. To not buy into that. And I think that's kind of the journey that I'm on as well, is like, I'm not interested in buying into those things. And I'm still trying to shed that, because so much of my younger years, I was so driven by the system of being like successful. I wanted to be so successful.
But I think that's part of it, man. It's like you went out there and you nailed it. And then you're left with what next? Most people hunt and hunt and hunt. So they spend their careers chasing that thing. But you and I, to an extent, we were kids when we walked into the dream. So what after, when you wake back up? And it's
well, for me, it was a distilling of what really inspired me, of what really success meant. And I was just listening to an audio tape the other day, and they asked that question. It was like a self-development thing. It was like, what is success to you? And I've heard that question so many times, but I heard it this one time a few days ago. And I was like, yeah, what is success? what do I really see my target as being? And for me, it's like surfing the wave. Like this conversation right now, I'm like, I just want to be here, enjoying it, having fun, doing the best I can, and letting it go. And it's like, that to me is success. You know, maybe it's rescuing a kid from drowning from in a pool or something. It's just like, I want success to me as being in the moment, inspired or crying or just being present and feeling connected to that growth and that evolution of life, and not being attached to it being one way or the other, but I am committed to growth and contribution. And beyond that, it's all gravy.
That's kind of,
You know?
basically, I mean, you could ask us 100 times, we might always find slightly different words for it, but
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned too. And there isn't really anything all that complicated first, like worth chasing. Things are surprisingly simple.
Yeah. There's things worth yeah. I mean, how many times do you get caught up, or not so much anymore probably for you, but in the past maybe, chasing things that you thought were worth it, that you were told, you were programmed to believe, this is what you want, Kerry. You know, you got to look a certain way, you got to get a certain...
Dude, I still struggle with that shit all the time, man.
Yeah?
Man, this is a hard game, this world. I mean, man, every time I do a cameo or sell something on Etsy, I have a crisis of conscience. None of it all quite makes sense. And I know that the general memes of society are so ingrained in us that, like, we can't, even when we think outside of the box, we're still thinking inside of it.
I don't think when we're inspired, we're thinking inside a box.
I think when we're thinking about ways to be creative about surviving society, even if you've chosen to be on the fringes of it.
Yeah, I don't think about, well, I mean, I try not to think about that. I try and believe that if I'm serving and contributing and growing, that a higher power will take care of me. Sometimes I get caught in like, oh no, like, how am I going to do this? And how's this going to work? And then I'm like, I don't care enough about that. Like, I really feel deep down, it's like, I do believe in a God or a divine power of some sort because of my float tank experience. I'm like, this is all love. And my ego and the sense of this individual self is just this experience I'm having. And so if I can point this vessel towards that love, towards service, towards growth, then that energy, that love will flow into me and give me the food that I need, random chance meetings with people that'll be like I was in the grocery store the other day and I was having this conversation with a guy because I don't wear a mask in the grocery store. And he's like, oh, you know, anyways, long story short, I got this contact from this guy that I was looking for advice. I needed some help with some technical stuff. And he's like, oh, I know this guy. And I was like, you know that guy? He's like, yeah, here's his number, blah, blah. I was like, what? Where did this come from? Like a random conversation in a grocery store. So in that sense, I believe that there are so many blessings and opportunities and things that are waiting to flood into your life this is my personal belief, as long as you are in that present moment, in service, in that joy of being alive, growing, doing your best. And it's not always pretty. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's ugly. But there's things that are just waiting. I can't prove this, but it's a great story that I tell myself.
No, dude, I'm listening, and I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm trying to find ways to poke holes, the devil's advocate, because I honestly, I don't enjoy this story. I don't like it. I don't like
what story don't you
truth.
like?
I don't like that the truth is what you just shared, that the universe, and then you kept talking, and it still frustrates me because I'm a man of, I like to do things my own way, and I like the idea of planet-wide equality, but you defined it right there. First off, you're right. You're 100% right. But ultimately, it comes down to probably the universe tends to reward people in terms of helping them get with the navigational tools they require for that set challenge if they spend time being in service, present, and with gratitude. So I know an awful lot of people who don't spend time in those, and they find themselves in some pretty strenuous places.
Yeah, and I think it's literally like...
I hate that you're right, though. Hey, God, you up there? You listening? I will never bow to you.
I think that... it's like frequencies. I did an Instagram story about this and about seeing like this angel thing. And I think it's the same thing. Like, you can literally tune yourself like an instrument to different realities. And some realities, when you're super grateful and appreciative and looking for ways to grow outside your comfort zone, in that reality, in that space of existence, with that comes blessings, comes adventure, comes unforeseen, opportunities that just show up in your life and synchronicities. And I'm like, I like that reality. That's a cool one. I can't always live there. Some days it's like rainy and dark and I'm like, oh my God, my life is terrible and I can't, I hate everything. And I go there for a bit and I'm like, okay, you can go here. This is an experience.
You don't judge it.
I don't judge it. I don't like it. It's
No,
not
but
enjoyable.
I like that you leave room for it. Right?
I leave room for it.
If an invasive thought is going to come in, maybe instead of trying to chase it away, just let it float around for a minute and then go off on its own, right? Yeah, it helps. It's better.
I think resistance is what you resist will persist. I firmly believe that sort of mathematical equation of like, you push something away, it's going to stay there. And so if you don't like an experience, whether it be depression or something you're going through that's really painful, don't push it away. Maybe you need tools to step into it to learn how to process it, but by pushing it away, you hold it in place.
I think so. And it's got nowhere to go but to become suppression, rage, cancer.
Disease. Yeah. I think a lot of humanity's challenges are because we don't have the tools to process the difficult challenges that we face, so we resist them, we fight against them. And it's like, that's why I always say, like, to people when we're talking about charity work or just intentions in sense, it's like, focus on what you do want. Focus on where you want to go instead of resisting what you don't want. And what you don't want will automatically be left behind because you're going to where it's towards the brighter day, the brighter future, the thing that you do want to create.
And that I completely agree with you. And I think this takes place even on the types of stories that we don't like to talk about or think about, because it's hard to imagine how presence and gratitude fits into like a 13-year-old child of war's life who has known nothing but poverty. But I feel like of the cross-section of people that fit into that scenario, the ones that are leaning on gratitude and presence in some way are probably experiencing it slightly differently than others. I think it's important too that we're, because we're always podcasting here and shit, man, this is the first world. Just want to start incorporating more of them, trying to remember how other people live, which simplifying and living in a motorhome and getting on the road and just having a lot less makes me feel a little closer to understanding some of the other world. Not that we have really any idea.
I don't think I'll ever be able to fully understand it, but I did, when I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He was survived the Holocaust, and he talked about, the meaning that you choose the meaning. And a lot of people that didn't have a reason to get up in the morning, they perished because they were so caught in the tragedy that was constantly around them. This is just from my memory. I could be butchering this, but
actually read this book recently.
You did?
You're bang on.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I love that. And it was a really great sort of like grounding perspective of life and being like, you know what? The meanings that we choose, the things that we're grateful for, what we choose to put our attention on makes a huge difference in the quality of our life and what we're able to accomplish and whether we want to continue on this journey. Like, if we don't have an awareness of those things, it makes it very difficult to have an experience that is evolving. When you get stuck in ruts, if you aren't aware of these aspects of life and you get stuck in a cycle, you're like, what's the point? I can't break out. It's like, well, if you understand these tools, meaning, focus, and continuation of these things, then you can break those cycles and break free and create something wonderful like Viktor Frankl did with his book. That's what I had to say.
I like that, man. No, it's... Do you ever feel any strange sense of guilt about the fact that we live on the tiny side of the world and in a situation where we are able to just go for our dreams? Sometimes
You feel guilty for that?
Sometimes, yeah.
I just feel grateful.
Like, I'm always just like, shit, man. I got all the food I could ever want to eat. I've always got a roof over my head, even if it's a damn minivan. And like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel I know it's not a healthy feeling habit, but
What would it feel like if you just flipped that and you said instead of like all this, you felt blessed and you felt grateful?
well, and I just picture an asshole celebrating how good he has it from the perspective.
Oh, so you
of
see it.
kids.
So you see it as gloating.
Yes, a little bit. I do. I can't help it. I've
Dude.
always been like that.
To appreciate is to give thanks. It's not to gloat and to yell at the rooftops how great your life is.
No. I understand.
Yeah.
But I just sometimes can't help it, man. I think about, man, sometimes I feel guilty just for being a guy. Sometimes I'll be out like walking around the woods in the middle of the night and I'm like, I'm perfectly safe. And I was like, and no woman on the planet ever feels that way.
Well, that's not true. That's sexist.
Well, no,
lots of
that
women
is true.
feel.
That's true. But I know a lot of women even just like, and not to turn this into a conversation about that, but just an example is like, yeah, I sometimes experience guilt and even shame over, man, I even feel guilty when I go to the gym and there's like some dude who's just half my size because that's his genetic makeup. And I can see that it frustrates him that he wants to do more. And I just feel, I don't know why I feel guilty.
Dude, don't take
about that. But
well, I mean, you do what you want to do. It's your experience. But I've
keep in mind, I'm not trying to feel this way. It
just happens.
It's not
Okay.
a goal. Like,
because
no.
to me, I'm like guilt and shame. And I learned this from Lynette Alinda, who I've been working with for a number of years now. She says, and I'm experimenting with this idea. She says that guilt and shame are man-made and they're not real emotions. They were like sort of programs that were put into humans.
Well, I don't see a lot
to
of
minimize
animals
them.
experiencing it. So
Yeah.
I would totally agree.
So I'm kind of like, okay, maybe, but then I'm like, knowing that you did something wrong, don't you feel guilty? And she, anyways, I'll have to ask her more about that, but that's something that I'm like, yeah, because there is in our society right now, and I don't like this. They're trying to make people feel guilty. Someone was talking to me about this the other day. Like, oh, don't you feel you're privileged? That was the thing. You're privileged, blah, blah. I was like, I don't use the word privileged. I use the word blessed because therefore the opportunities, the things that we have in Canada and food in our fridge and a roof over, those things, I don't now feel guilty and privileged that I have all these things and other people don't. I feel blessed and I appreciate them. Therefore, I don't take them for granted. I take care of them. I live in a sustainable way and I do my best to help others because I'm not coming from this place of like, well, I have it, I'm privileged and you don't, so that's your loss. Or I have this, I'm privileged and now I feel guilty, so like I shouldn't have this stuff. It's like, those are both like kind of toxic ways to live.
You know what it is for me, I think, because you're right. I think it's this. I think it's because if I came into, let's just use a ludicrous number, like $10 million tomorrow,
Yeah.
I know I would use that to set myself up well beyond my present means before I would help the rest of the world. I think I feel guilty because I don't think I'm necessarily better than the system that I lash out at. And maybe that's not true, but
I think you are. I think you know what you'd probably do? Because didn't you do this when you first started working on Heartland? You started giving money away to like everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely in your nature to be generous.
Yes, which I've learned, don't do that, everyone. Be like Scrooge.
No.
Keep your money in your own pocket. No.
I think you're a
I'm
very
just
generous soul.
But even that was mostly motivated out of this same, man, I just have such a, like, I remember even reading this thing, and this is just the thing, it's like the things that we find ourselves encountering when we're young, and how they shape our futures. Because like, you're right, you're talking about a much more open, more healthy mindset. For me, it's just like, I read this story about this like Roman army and they're all in the desert. Everyone's lost. They've run out of water and there's one helmet full of water left. So the general of the army has it and he looks around at his people and what's he do? He only has one choice.
He pours it out or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pours it out. Because it's fair. I have a hard time with fairness. Like a really irrationally challenging time. And because I think it's the meme of our society where we don't really quite take, if everyone's baseline was met, I could back the fuck off. I don't care. I'm fine with like 3 people having the majority of the world's wealth. I don't even care if there are multi-billionaires out there. I just need the baseline for the world to be met.
What's the baseline?
Food and shelter.
Okay.
And right to medicine. Right to education.
What does that mean, right to education? You don't have to pay for it?
Well, obviously you shouldn't have to pay for education, but that's the system of degrees. You might have to go to school for your degrees, but everyone should have the ability to learn to read, the right to learn to read. Like that to me is just something, whether it's in their own language or not. Everyone deserves some basic critical thinking skills, which set you up for critical thinking as an adult. Basic math and reading are part of that.
So until that happens, you can't be happy in a sense, or
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably not fully ever, yeah. I'm never going to be able to go to sleep at night and not think about.
Because I think you can be inspired to want to bring education of reading education to the entire world, but still enjoy your life, but still have a good quality of life. You don't have to live extravagantly or like, frivolously, but I think you can still enjoy yourself and have a really purposeful mission in life to educate and empower people. I think those can coexist.
I think they kind of can. The irony is that you're kind of pitching a full-time job. So the irony is like, in order to do the thing that gave you the money in the first place, to be able to do that already just split you in half.
Maybe you get some good investments. Maybe you start a business.
But at the end of the day, like, any one individual throwing money or time at this is not a very practical solution. There's like painful truths about this reality that are just troubling. Like, we don't have a lot of time left on this planet, at least the bulk of us. Things are happening at exponential rates that just people don't want to talk about. Like, did you know, and this is going to be a first for a lot of people, did you know that the moon is actually drifting away from us?
No, I did not know that.
Extremely quickly.
What, is that a bad thing if it drifts away?
Very bad thing.
What happens if the moon drifts away?
I think that a lot of the weather activity on the Earth that's been happening over the last few years is related entirely to the distance of the moon.
Jeez.
Yeah, it will be.
Why is the moon floating away? Does the moon not like us anymore?
No, the moon doesn't like us anymore. Well, orbital dynamics is a pretty big conversation, but
well, summarize it. Can you give me like a Cole's notes? Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Moons are never fixed in an orbit forever around any planet. Okay. Moons are often coming in and leaving. Now, when I say often, I mean like billions and billions of years. But yeah, it's time. We've lost ours between the Earth warming up and coming into the warming cycle in terms of like proximity to the sun. We got squished like an egg while that was happening. That was during all those earthquakes and that for a while there, leading up to 2012. And the moon got tugged just a little too hard by the sun from proximity, and she's slowly flying away now. She's still orbiting us and will for millions of years, but
and this
she's
just
drifting.
creates storms and
well,
stuff.
that's the thing, is like a lot of people don't know. At first it was like, oh my God, could this create massive storms and weather? It's going to change the length of days on Earth. We don't know what. Yeah, it's all changing, dude. Our orbit is slowing down. Our orbit and the speed and the consistency was also related to that moon's proximity. It hasn't drifted quite far enough yet, but it's happening, dude.
Okay, so I've heard that, and this is like I love conspiracy theories. This is a fun theory that I've heard. I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory really, but I've fun idea that I heard that we're going to shift on the Earth to like the poles, the magnetic poles of the Earth are going to shift, and then the weather is going to be more like not so dramatic.
They've already moved substantially. Like, they do drift. Planetary poles do drift.
Like flip entirely.
Well, that's what's happening. They're on their way to that happening. They've moved quite a lot.
Okay, so I'd never heard of that. And then I was like, what? And then it was like, yeah, we're going to shift to 12-hour days or 12-hour sun, 12-hour night, and the weather's just going to be like nice all over the planet. And I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Well, the equator is probably going to become a desert. We're looking at, safe zones from the equator.
Because it'd be too hot.
Way too hot. It's going to affect.
Can you imagine if Canada became like California?
What will also happen is it's going to push rain. It'll change the wind and, like you said, stiller weather. So it will not rain around the equator anymore. All the rain will go off to the cooler poles.
Whoa, man.
Which means it'll rain and snow at the poles potentially.
What?
But the center is going to be like a completely cooked belt.
Wow.
It'll probably be largely unlivable.
What a time to be alive.
What a time to die.
I don't want to die yet. I want to see the transition, man.
You probably do when you die.
I want to see aliens. I really want to see aliens. That's another fun. Have you heard about reptiles or reptilians? Is that what they're called?
I don't know.
You never read it?
I'm not really into, like, what my thing is like, just if there are other beings, for me, even if they possess physical form, they have to be traveling through some kind of technology that there are no men flying around in space in metal ships. Not like that.
How do you know? What if there are?
Okay. The only reason I believe that thus far is unless their technology is significantly more advanced.
Well,
than
of
our
course
own.
it would be.
You'd have to be able to travel 15 times the speed of light to even make it worth leaving a star.
Of course.
Okay. I just don't see why they would have any interest here yet now. I don't think aliens are coming down until we are over.
Okay. Let's make a bet. By 2030. At 2030, if 2030 rolls around and there's been no confirmed aliens, I'll buy you what? What do you want?
Gosh, that's a hard question. I'm not a man of many wants.
A bottle of whiskey.
A bottle of whiskey.
A bottle of whiskey. Okay. And if I win and we do meet aliens,
I have to pee on the alien's leg. No warning. No warning. First interaction. And then
I get to choose an alien that you have to make out with.
Sweet.
How about that?
Man, I absolutely.
Could have multiple tentacles.
Now we're talking.
Awesome, dude. Well, this has been a fun conversation. I do want to end. I know last time you were on the show, I asked you my magic painting question. This is a kind of a follow-up, similar type of question. The magic painting one was about the type of feeling that you would want to feel. And if I remember correctly, yours was that feeling of like laughter. I wish I remember it now, but remember that, your magic painting?
I think I called it calm bliss.
Was it bliss? I thought it was a laughter thing.
Was it laughter?
Where you couldn't stop laughing.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of laughter.
Was that it?
I can't remember.
Okay. Well, anyways, for everyone listening, they probably know, but this is an evolution of the question, and it's the feeling that you would least want to feel.
The feeling that I least want to feel.
Or you don't like feeling at all. What's that feeling for you that you really have a hard time with, that you want to push away from as soon as it comes up?
When I was 21, I think, I had a friend of mine, and she had anxiety disorder, and so she took Ativan for those attacks.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they were like, try a quarter of an Ativan, see what it does. And so I was like, okay. And it's like, they were like, it just calms you down, like makes you calm. So they were wrong. First off, that is a very poor description of what Ativan does, at least for me. It nullifies any ability to feel anything. And that was the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. You can't even fucking cry or feel sad. I would have done anything to feel anxiety or felt miserable. I remember looking at them and being like, guys, like if I wasn't stopped from being able to feel, I would be freaking out right now. This is the worst I've ever felt and the least alive I've ever been in self. Yeah, that.
So the feeling is the absence of feeling.
Dude,
that's the worst ever.
I've described accidentally myself as like feeling depression or being depressed. But then when you actually look into what clinical depression is, it's numbness. It's the absence of feeling anymore. And I was like, that's where the true terror is, because you are essentially, you're a dead man walking.
Numb. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was prescribed Prozac. Is that an antidepressant?
Yeah. That one's an antidepressant.
Yeah. Prozac and another one. I can't remember the other one. Something with an S maybe. I can't remember. Anyways, in high school. And that was exactly the feeling I got.
Did it scare you too? Or?
It was horrible. I felt like a pillow. I couldn't feel happy. I couldn't feel sad. I couldn't feel anything. I was like, nothing matters.
That's how I felt. I was like, I think I might need to hurt myself.
Yes.
In order to feel anything. And I was like, thank God this was just half of one of these, and I know that it will stop and not be like this. But I feel like those drugs are handed out to kids without really considering the well-being of a lot of kids. Because damn, son.
From my experience, it definitely wasn't for me. And that's why I, on my own accord, not even talking to my doctor, I was just like, I'm stopping taking these. Like, I cannot take these. I'll deal with the feelings, the depression, what I'm going through. I'll deal with that.
But maybe that's the gift. Gives you the clarity. It's like, don't you miss your pain now? Yeah.
Yeah. And some people I've heard, and I haven't had many in-depth conversations with them, but I don't want to take away their experience, that they've got benefit from that relief.
Dude, everybody's different.
So I'm like, everybody's different. So,
you know, and like, that's the thing. I'm specifically talking. You're talking just for ourselves.
Yeah. So for you, this feeling of no feeling, if you were to put that into a painting or a picture, how would you express that?
and it's so brutally gray. It's just the silhouette of a dude standing in just grayness. It's so grayscale you can barely see him.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really just gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a silhouette of a
just a dude standing there. And of course he's wearing like a silly trench coat and trousers, just like a defeated salesman sort of silhouette. Just broken.
defeated salesman.
Some Glenn Ross kind of shit.
Cool, man. Cool.
Yeah. Oh,
awesome,
that was
dude.
Bleak. No. Let's go do something. Let's go feel something.
Well, the sun's out. It's a beautiful day right now. Thanks, Kerry. Is there anything else you wanted to share with people?
We got to do this again because
Yeah.
originally we were going to discuss politics.
Oh, yeah. We were going to discuss politics.
We will do this again and discuss. Graham and I have your solution, everyone. No.
I forgot about that. Yeah, Kerry James has this really fun idea, so we'll have to do another part 2 or something.
Probably. You think we should? Because it's,
It's up to you, man. I love the idea if you want to share it.
Well, I'll just share it very quickly then. And I know this is something that you've been tossing around for yourself as well. It's just like, why do we vote on parties anymore? Parties are based on one person or a few people's inflated egos saying, I am the best for this job and here's what I'm going to do. Doesn't it make more sense if we as the people all voted on policies and then a politician isn't really a job to be sought after, but someone who is appointed to uphold the policies of the people? And I don't understand why if Instagram and Facebook are capable of what they're capable of, why isn't there a streamlined app that allows
for politics
to learn about the policies so that you can vote in your policies? A streamlined
It sounds so simple and so straightforward. You're like, yeah, why wouldn't they do that?
The only reason that they don't do that is because, well, it would put a lot of people who are lifelong politicians out of jobs because they become immediately obsolete.
Yeah, because if you don't enact the checklist of what people want done, you're gone.
Imagine not having to see all those stupid signs and buses and crap on the news all day long. Instead, it was just like talking about the policies that we should consider as the public.
Yeah.
And we could vote them in.
And then those politicians wouldn't be, what's the word, enticed to lie to people and to promise them all these things that they weren't going to do, because if they get into office to do the job, that here's the job, do it. And if they don't do it, well, you're fired.
Well, you're fired, just like any other position.
Just like any other job in the world.
Get elected out, just fuck off. We're firing you right now, today.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if they did accomplish those things, it's like, yeah, keep them in line. Like, here's some more. Like, keep it rolling.
But, I mean, being the prime minister should not be a position sought after for fame, which is what Castro's kid went ahead and did. That was my rip on Trudeau.
Yeah.
It's just
Justin Castro.
Yeah, he just is looking out for himself and his own, what works for him and his future. And he's making choices with our country that benefit a career for him in the future, have nothing to do with really what's best for us now.
Probably some people believe that it's best for.
Oh, he's so nice and likable.
I used to think that. I think right now I see him as a really sad individual.
Yeah.
I see a lot of sadness in his eyes, and he tries so hard to be well spoken and sound. Canadian politicians, they have this way of speaking, and it makes me want to slap them. I'm like, stop speaking like that.
So fake, so
it's
inauthentic.
Fake. It's so fake.
At least Donald Trump was like, here I am, I'm loud, I'm messy, I tell it like it is.
Pierre Poilievre, I can't remember, I can't pronounce his name correctly, but I like him. He speaks a bit more real, but still kind of politician-y, like politics. There's another, Randy Hillier, he speaks more real. But there's very few politicians that just speak real, Anyways, your app idea, I love it. So you vote on policies, and then the policies get ranked.
Yeah.
And then the politicians go, oh, okay. They show up and they say, so on my first year, I'm going to enact these, the first 5 policies, and this is how I'm going to do it. And the politicians present their plans. And then the people go, oh, that guy sounds like he knows what he's doing. I'm going to, do you vote for the person, or how does that person eventually get the job?
Well, and I mean, this is going to be highly controversial, but
Oh yeah, you like this? Yeah, okay.
This is a totally different system. I think that, and I understand there's a lot of controversy around this and separating people, but to me, it makes sense that that professors of universities, they all elect the dean of that university. And then amongst all the deans in Canada, they would elect their different appointed positions inside the government, the different secretaries in that, and a dean would be elected through that as well. And like I said, this isn't a position where you're like, yeah, I'm the king of the world, because you really don't have a voice of your own. The job is simply to uphold the policies that the people vote in. So it would be like sort of a collegiate system. And I mean, keep in mind, as someone who isn't very educated and doesn't have any degrees, that would make me personally exempt from being the Prime Minister of Canada. But keep in mind, being the Prime Minister wouldn't mean what it does today. You would just be the best suited person, which is why the professors even elect a dean in the first place for the university. This person is best suited to look over all of these departments.
So what are the qualifications that someone would need on this new idea, on this new way of politics, of running a government? Wouldn't they need to be also good at business?
Yeah, but hear me out.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. So there are a lot of different deans in Canada. There's a lot of different universities, which includes a lot of different diversity and a lot of different people looking out for a lot of different causes. So just like the Prime Minister, he doesn't just get single-handedly go, these are the policies, here's how I want to do it. He's got a cabinet of different people and secretaries, all of which would be a dean elected into the position. So it's like, well, why not pick the dean with a poli-sci degree and a business degree and a degree in economics to represent that part of the government? We have another dean that came from a university, military background. And while that person probably is going to be more suited to represent defense. And this person, we have an arts college degree, an arts university. They're probably better to look over the CBC kind of stuff.
Right.
This makes sense, right? All the jobs still filled, a lot of diversity, more diversity than now. There'd be a lot less of the same.
I mean, it's interesting. You shared this with me a bit before, and I was kind of like, I don't know if that would work, but I hear what you're saying now, and it's possible. The thing I like about the way our current system runs is that, somebody who is an outsider, is an underdog, can run for office. And if they have good ideas, if they talk to people and they take that sort of input and they have values, they don't take money from special interests, they can win.
Totally.
And I like that idea that they can't be bought, or that there's the underdog has a chance.
But in this new system, they can't be anyway. There's nothing to buy them for. The policies are elected by the people. The job's to uphold the policies. So how do you cheat?
Yeah.
What are the incentives? And then the other thing
What about influencing?
Well, the other thing is what I would think is like, well, why not then on this level, let's keep municipalities still under like mayoral candidates. So if you're interested in politics, you can still become your local mayor in that, but you probably shouldn't be speaking for the province. And if you want to be, then go to university, become a professor, get yourself elected as a dean.
I like the voting on policy. I also think personally, smaller governments that are empowered locally, less
and
big
that's
government.
The other reason I like it is like the university deans are all over the nation, having knowledge of their own geography and what's going on.
Yeah.
So they bring all that to the table.
Yeah.
They bring
the wise.
They know what's going on with the young minds.
Yeah.
They're there. They're involved in how the world is changing. So their view and vantage of what could be best for the country, they might differ hugely depending on region, but ultimately that's their job to have to reach consensus.
I guess in some ways, university, college and stuff, it's like,
well, we'd have to stop treating it like a fucking business and start treating it as so there's a lot to clean up. This is not perfect. First off, college and education should work to enhance the future of its citizens, not as a business.
To make money and like put kids in debt and like
for shame, Canada.
Yeah, like I mean, there are great professors, great teachers out there, but they're rare from my experience. Maybe it's just because of my experience, but I think of like people that get into that system, climb the ladder, check the boxes, read all the textbooks, and then regurgitate the things that they're supposed to regurgitate. And it's kind of like, that's not somebody. I want a free thinker. I want someone who thinks outside the box. I want a visionary. I want somebody who is in tune with life, not stuck in a school all day every day. Like, and that's a gross generalization, but
what you're saying is like, it makes perfect sense. And if I was in charge of all of this stuff as it was, I'm looking at my system, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I go, this guy's right. We need to create a secretary position for someone who is a rogue.
A rogue?
Yeah. Who is outside of the box. We definitely, like, that's a valued position.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important to have that outside the box perspective as well, right? Because at least from my very limited knowledge, it's like, some of those big systems, universities, they have a way of doing things, and you can't stray from that.
I'm barely educated, so I don't know.
Two uneducated guys sitting in the van, talking about how to change the world.
I mow the lawn outside. I see the students going in and out.
What you learning? What's going on in those big doors over there?
Oh, buddy. Dude, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, man, this was fun. And glad we got to do video too. And
first video.
Got the sun shining in our face.
In my RV.
Yeah, beautiful day.
My home, excuse me.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. And thank you again, Kerry, for being on the show again.
Dude, my pleasure. This was fun.
Awesome. Cheers, guys. Well, that's it, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you watching all the way to the end. That makes a difference. And I really, really, really enjoy making these podcasts for you all. So you supporting me by watching the episode all the way to the end or listening all the way to the end really helps my show. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you to Kerry James for being on the show once again, sharing your perspectives, your insights, your adventurous spirit, your openness to life. I love it, dude. And I know you guys all loved it too. So if you did, please drop a comment in the description or the comment box, or post something on social media and let me know, let Kerry know as well. If you want to follow more of Kerry's work, I have made a little miniature website for Kerry, and you can click on that link and see all his content, what he's got going on, and that's in the show notes or below this video. You can check that out there. I also want to say thank you to Eskimotion. He is the man, the legend, the musical artist who creates my intro music, and I love his music. It really sets the tone, as I always say, and I have to give an acknowledgement to him for his musical talents and his support, so thank you to Eskimotion. And thank you to all of you that support me making this show and dropping me comments and telling me, hey man, when's the next episode? I'm excited to see it. And and it keeps me going. It's a different world creating your own content, being more of an entrepreneur now. I'm used to being an actor, and somebody else, they call me and they say, hey man, we need you here tomorrow at this time. And I show up, but when it's on my schedule, you got to make your own, you got to hustle yourself. You got to get going. You got to keep moving forward. So your support and your encouragement has really helped me make this new transition or this evolution in my life. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for your support, for your encouragement. Some of you have fan sites. Some of you drop comments. Some of you share the content with your friends. Some of you send me very generous donations to keep the lights on and keep this podcast growing, which I have to do now because I'm adding video and it's a lot of work. So I got two editors now that I'm going to be hiring to create more of the content and to make this happen quicker for you all. So thank you for your support. Thank you for helping me to build this show to reach more people. It really means the world to me, so thank you. Now, I also have to address an important issue, some concerns. There are some scammers out there, and there's some people that have been pretending to be me. They use my photo. Maybe there'll be some in the comments of this video, so be careful if you're watching the YouTube version or the version on Odyssey. You never know where the spammers show up. But what you can always be certain of is that I won't ask you for your bank details. I won't give you bank details to send me money. I'm not going to Skype with you. I'm not going to send you private messages telling you about projects that I need you to fund. That's not going to happen, okay? I have certain links on my social media. It's like the little link in bio. All my official social media is there. And if you want to donate to the podcast, it's all in there. I'm never going to reach out to you and say, hey, send me a bank transfer for $10,000 to save these puppies or to fund my new Netflix production or whatever. It's not going to happen, okay? So be careful, be aware. There's scammers everywhere. But some people, unfortunately, have gotten scammed recently, and I've heard about it through the grapevine. And so I'm doing my best to try and raise awareness and to prevent that from happening as best I can. So if you do see that, please call it out, report it, and let other people know too, because some people, they're not thinking, and they click on something and they think they're talking with me, and bad things can happen. So I just wanted to put that out there and let everybody know, raise some awareness. Next up on the podcast, I have my friend Don McLeod. Don and I started Cruise with a Cause way back in the day, that motorcycle charity ride where we would do little stops in British Columbia and in Alberta, and we would do autograph signings with the other Heartland cast, and then we'd ride motorcycles and raise money for charity. So Don McLeod has a new album coming out. He's a musician, and he has a new album coming out. So on the next podcast, I'm going to be chatting with him about the good old days of Cruise with the Cause, a little bit about our friendship, and also about his music and his journey as a man that has gone through a massive transformation. So I'm really excited to share that with you all. He has some really, really great music that we play on the podcast, so I hope you enjoy it. So that'll be up very soon. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this show. Much love to you all. Cheers.